Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing the most difficult story I've ever told, one that completely shattered my world and rebuilt it into something I never could have imagined. If you're going through betrayal, manipulation, or feeling like your life has fallen apart, please stick around. This story has a hopeful ending, but it gets dark before it gets light. My name is Sarah, and 5 years ago, I thought I had the perfect marriage. I was 32, living in a beautiful suburb of Phoenix, Arizona, with my husband Marcus, who was 38. We'd been married for 6 years, together for 8. Marcus was a successful marketing director at a tech company, and I was working my way up as a project manager at a consulting firm. We had our dream house, 2 cars, and were actively trying for children. Marcus came from what seemed like a close-knit family. His mother, Elena, was the type of woman who would literally give you the clothes off her back if she thought they'd look better on you. She treated me like the daughter she never had, taking me shopping, teaching me family recipes, and always making sure I felt included in every family gathering. His father, Robert, was a quiet but kind man who worked in construction management and always had a warm smile for me. And then there was Bella, Marcus's younger sister who had just turned 24. Bella and I had become incredibly close over the years. She was vivacious, outgoing, and had this infectious energy that drew people to her. We'd have girls' nights out, go to concerts together, try new restaurants, and she'd often crash at our place on weekends. As we both matured, our friendship deepened beyond just fun and games. I actually helped Bella land her first real job as a fitness instructor at an upscale gym in Scottsdale. We'd work out together every Saturday morning, grab smoothies afterward, and she'd tell me about her dating adventures and career goals. She confided in me that I was her first genuine female friend because throughout high school and college, other girls had ostracized her due to a vicious rumor. According to Bella, someone in her social circle had spread a disgusting lie about her and Marcus having an inappropriate relationship. The rumor was so damaging that it followed her through school, causing her to lose friends and making it difficult for her to form close relationships with other women. When she told me this, my heart broke for her. I couldn't imagine how painful it must have been to deal with such accusations, especially about her own brother. During the COVID-19 lockdown in 2020, like many couples, Marcus and I found ourselves dealing with some challenges. We were both working from home, cooped up together 24/7, and Marcus had gained about 25 pounds from stress eating and lack of exercise. He became increasingly self-conscious about his weight and kept talking about how he needed to get back in shape. He'd make comments like, "I want to be attractive for you," and "I need to be healthy for when we have kids." That's when I made what I now realize was the worst suggestion of my life. Bella was still living with Elena and Robert because she'd just finished college and was trying to save money while building her fitness career. She had an amazing physique, ate incredibly clean, and was always posting workout routines on her social media. So I suggested that maybe she could move in with us temporarily to help Marcus get back in shape and save on rent. What if Bella moved in with us for a few months? I suggested one evening while we were watching Netflix and Marcus was complaining about his appearance. She could help you with workouts and meal planning, and it would save her money on rent. Marcus's face lit up immediately. "That's actually a brilliant idea, babe. Bella knows all about fitness and nutrition, and it would be fun having her around." He called Bella that same evening and put her on speakerphone. When he explained the plan, her response was enthusiastic, almost to the point of being overwhelming. "Oh my God, yes, this is going to be like the ultimate sleepover that never ends." She squealed in such a high-pitched voice that I literally winced. "I can move in this weekend if you want." Something about her immediate excitement should have been my first red flag, but at the time, I just attributed it to her naturally bubbly personality. Bella moved in the following Saturday with just 3 suitcases, a massive collection of protein powders and supplements, and enough workout equipment to stock a small gym. She immediately took over our guest bedroom and started rearranging our kitchen to accommodate her very specific dietary requirements. For the first few weeks, everything seemed perfectly normal and actually quite fun. Bella established a strict routine for Marcus. 5:30 a.m. wake-up calls, high-intensity workouts in our garage, protein-packed breakfast, and meticulously planned meals throughout the day. I would join them occasionally for the morning workouts, but honestly, I was just happy to see Marcus motivated and energetic again. Marcus started making comments that, looking back, should have concerned me more. He'd say things like, "I need to be in peak physical condition for when we start our family," and "I want to be the husband you deserve, Sarah. Bella's helping me become a better version of myself." The physical transformation was remarkable. Within 6 weeks, Marcus had lost the weight and was more muscular than he'd been since college. He was walking around the house shirtless, constantly checking himself out in mirrors, and seemed to have a new confidence that bordered on arrogance. But there were changes in Bella, too, that I initially missed or explained away. She had always been conservative in her dress, typically wearing flowy maxi dresses, oversized sweaters, and modest clothing. But after moving in, she started wearing extremely tight athletic wear around the house. Sports bras, tiny shorts, compression leggings that left nothing to the imagination. When I mentioned it to Marcus, he said, "She's just comfortable around us now. It shows how much she trusts us as a family." I began waking up to an empty bed almost every morning. I'd stumble downstairs to find Marcus and Bella in the living room doing what they called partner stretches, elaborate yoga-like positions that seemed unnecessarily intimate for a workout routine. The first time I asked to join, Marcus quickly shut me down. "Sarah, these are very advanced movements that Bella and I have been perfecting for weeks. Your presence throws off our synchronization, and honestly, you need your sleep more than you need to exercise." I was hurt and confused. Since when did Marcus care so much about my sleep schedule? And since when was I not athletic enough to keep up with them? One morning, I decided to test something. While Marcus was at work, I asked Bella if she could show me some of the partner stretches she'd been doing with my husband. "Of course," she said enthusiastically. "It's all about trust and communication between partners." But when we attempted the same routine, it was completely different. We barely touched each other. There was no face-to-face positioning, no intertwining of legs, no sustained eye contact. It was just normal stretching that happened to involve two people. The routine I'd witnessed between Bella and Marcus involved her straddling his back while he was in downward dog position, her legs wrapped around his torso during certain poses, and prolonged periods where they were breathing heavily while maintaining intense eye contact. What I'd seen wasn't exercise. It was foreplay disguised as fitness. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the rumors Bella had mentioned from high school. "There's no way," I told myself. "I'm being paranoid and ridiculous. These are siblings who are just comfortable with each other because they're family." But the incidents kept escalating in ways that made it impossible to ignore. I started coming home from work to find Bella hand-feeding Marcus his meals. They would sit facing each other at our kitchen island while she slowly, deliberately placed each bite of food in his mouth. They maintained unbroken eye contact throughout these feeding sessions, and Marcus would make little sounds of satisfaction that were definitely not appropriate for eating quinoa salad. When I asked what they were doing, Bella explained with complete seriousness, "It's called mindful eating. When someone feeds you, you're forced to slow down and really taste your food. It improves digestion and creates a deeper appreciation for nutrition." But why do you need to stare at each other like that?" I pressed. Eye contact helps with the mindfulness aspect," Marcus chimed in. "It's a technique Bella learned in her holistic health certification program." I later Googled mindful eating and found no evidence that it involved hand-feeding or prolonged eye contact with another person. The situation reached a new level of inappropriate when I came home early from work one day due to a migraine. I walked into our bedroom and found Bella giving Marcus what she called a deep tissue recovery massage. Marcus was lying face down on my side of the bed, our marital bed, completely shirtless. Bella was straddling his lower back, wearing nothing but a tiny sports bra and the shortest shorts I'd ever seen. She was using essential oils to massage his shoulders, back, and arms, and both of them were breathing heavily. "Oh, what the hell is going on here?" I demanded, standing frozen in the doorway. Bella looked up with this innocent expression that I now realize was completely fake. "Sarah, you're home early. I was just working on Marcus's pressure points. He's been complaining about tension in his shoulders from the new workout routine." "On our bed? With you dressed like that?" I could feel my voice getting higher and my face getting red. Marcus lifted his head and looked at me with annoyance. "Sarah, calm down. Bella's a certified massage therapist. This is completely professional, and it's helping with my recovery time." I later found out that Bella had no massage therapy certification. When I confronted her about it weeks later, she said she'd been planning to get certified and had watched YouTube videos. That night, I told Marcus I was uncomfortable with the arrangement and wanted Bella to move back to her parents' house. "Nar, you're being ridiculous and jealous," he said. "Bella is my sister. She's helping me become healthier, and you're turning it into something perverted because you can't handle that I'm improving myself." The manipulation was so subtle that I started questioning my own perceptions. Was I being jealous? Was I sexualizing an innocent sibling relationship? Marcus made me feel like I was the problem, like I was damaged for seeing something inappropriate in their behavior. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night in late September. I woke up around 2:30 a.m. to strange sounds coming from downstairs, rhythmic thumping and what sounded like heavy breathing or moaning. My first thought was that someone had broken into our house. I grabbed a baseball bat from our closet and crept downstairs to investigate. What I found in our kitchen was so disturbing that it's burned into my memory forever. Bella was sitting on our kitchen counter wearing practically nothing, a sports bra and tiny shorts that were more like underwear. Her legs were wrapped around Marcus's waist, and she was slowly feeding him a protein shake while he held her hips for what he claimed was balance. They were breathing heavily, staring into each other's eyes and making soft sounds that were definitely not related to nutrition. I stood there for probably 15 seconds, completely frozen, watching my husband and his sister in what was clearly an intimate moment. Finally, I exploded. "Marcus, what the fuck are you doing? That is your sister." Marcus turned to face me, and instead of embarrassment or shame, his eyes were filled with pure anger, not guilt. Anger that I had interrupted them. "Oh, so now I can't have a midnight snack with my sister?" he snarled. "Should I cut off my entire family just to make you happy, Sarah? Is that what you want?" The aggression in his voice was exactly the same tone my ex-boyfriend had used when I caught him cheating on me in college. It was the sound of someone who had been caught doing something wrong and was attacking me instead of taking responsibility. That's when I knew with absolute certainty that the rumors from Bella's high school years hadn't been rumors at all. They had been the truth. I couldn't sleep in that house anymore. I grabbed some clothes, got in my car, and drove to a hotel near the airport. I spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd witnessed and what it meant for my marriage. The next morning, I texted Bella, "We need to talk. Come to the Hampton Inn on Sky Harbor BLVD, room 237. If you bring Marcus, I'm calling the police." To my surprise, she actually showed up alone about an hour later. When I opened the hotel room door, I barely recognized her. This confident, bubbly fitness instructor looked like a scared child. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she was shaking. The moment the door closed behind her, she collapsed onto the floor and started sobbing uncontrollably. "I ruined everything," she whispered through her tears. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I've ruined everything." I sat down on the carpet next to her, my heart breaking despite everything that had happened. "Bella, you need to tell me the truth about what's been going on." She looked up at me with swollen, desperate eyes. "I've been throwing up every morning for 3 weeks." My stomach dropped. "When I saw the 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test, I couldn't believe it," she continued, her voice barely audible. "I wanted to tell you so many times, but Marcus said you wouldn't understand." "How far along are you?" I asked, even though I was terrified of the answer. 4 months, she whispered. "I'm 4 months pregnant." 4 months. That meant this had been going on since before she moved in with us. The entire fitness routine, the moving in, the intimate moments, it had all been an elaborate cover story for an affair that was already well underway. "Bella, how long has this been going on between you and Marcus?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. She couldn't look at me. "Since my 23rd birthday party in February. He came over to help me celebrate when you were out of town for your work conference. We were drinking, and he kept telling me how proud he was of me for finishing college and starting my career. My work conference in February. I remembered that trip to Denver. Marcus had insisted I go without him because he said he had too much work to catch up on. Instead, he'd been seducing his barely legal sister while I was building my career. He told me that you two weren't happy anymore. Bella continued. He said you were growing apart and that you'd probably divorce soon anyway. He said I was the only one who really understood him. Classic manipulation. Marcus had convinced his vulnerable younger sister that their marriage was already over and that I wouldn't be hurt by their affair because I supposedly didn't love him anymore. Bella, I said gently, did Marcus tell you to move in with us? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. He said it would be easier to spend time together if I was living there, and that the fitness thing would be the perfect cover story. He promised me that after you two divorced, we could be together openly and raise the baby as a family. I felt sick to my stomach. Marcus had orchestrated the entire situation. He'd manipulated both Bella and me, using his sister's feelings for him to create an elaborate deception that allowed him to have an affair right under my nose. Sarah, please don't hate me, Bella begged. I know what we did was wrong, but Marcus convinced me that you didn't love him anymore and that the marriage was already over. I looked at this 24-year-old girl who had been manipulated by a man 13 years older than her, a man she should have been able to trust as her protective older brother, and I felt more angry at Marcus than I did at her. Bella, I need you to understand something, I said firmly. Marcus lied to you. Our marriage wasn't in trouble. I love him, and I thought he loved me. He manipulated both of us. She stared at me in shock. But he said, he lied, I repeated. And now I need you to leave this hotel room, and I need you to stay away from me while I figure out what to do next. Bella nodded and stumbled toward the door, still sobbing. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. After she left, I sat in that hotel room for 6 hours, staring at my phone and trying to work up the courage to end my marriage. Finally, at around 4 p.m., I texted Marcus. I want a divorce. Don't bother trying to explain or apologize. I know about Bella and the baby. It's over. His response came within minutes. Sarah, you're being completely dramatic and overreacting. Come home so we can discuss this like adults. Bella is going through a difficult time, and as her family, we need to support her. Even in his response, he was trying to manipulate me. He was framing Bella's pregnancy as something that just happened to her, not as the result of their affair, and he was trying to make me feel guilty for not being supportive during this difficult time. I didn't respond to his text. The next morning, I drove to our bank to check our joint accounts. What I discovered there made me physically ill. Our joint savings account, which had contained $28,000, was completely empty. The teller showed me the withdrawal slip from the previous day, just hours after I'd left the house. Marcus had taken every penny, claiming the money was needed for emergency medical expenses. He had cleaned out our savings the moment he realized I knew about the affair, essentially stealing my financial security while his sister was pregnant with his child. I requested copies of all the account statements and withdrawal slips, then drove straight to my parents' house in Chandler. I needed to tell someone what was happening, and I needed advice about what to do next. My parents, Linda and David, had always loved Marcus. He was charming, successful, and seemed to treat me well. When I told them about the affair and the pregnancy, their faces went white with shock. Sarah, honey, are you absolutely sure about this? My mother asked. I mean, maybe there's some misunderstanding. Dad, Marcus emptied our bank account yesterday, I said. Does that sound like the behavior of an innocent man? My father's expression hardened. That son of a bitch. I'm going to drive over there and have a conversation with him right now. Dad? No, I said firmly. I need to handle this the right way. I need to protect myself legally. That evening, while I was staying at my parents' house, my phone started buzzing with notifications. Mutual friends were texting me, asking if I was okay and if the rumors they were hearing were true. I quickly checked social media and discovered that Bella had posted a long, emotional statement on Facebook and Instagram about how I was jealous of her close relationship with Marcus and was trying to destroy their family bond. Her post read, "Sometimes people can't handle when siblings are close and supportive of each other. I'm going through a difficult time in my life, and my brother Marcus has been there for me when others have abandoned me. Some people are so insecure that they sexualize normal family relationships and try to cause problems where none exist. I'm heartbroken that someone I trusted and considered a sister would try to tear our family apart with lies and accusations. Please keep Marcus and me in your prayers during this difficult time." She was painting me as the villain, making it seem like I was a jealous, unstable wife who was trying to destroy an innocent sibling relationship. And because she didn't mention the pregnancy or provide any context, people who knew us were confused and didn't know what to believe. Within hours, I was getting phone calls and messages from friends asking for my side of the story. Some were supportive, but others seemed to believe Bella's version of events. I realized I needed proof of what had been happening in my own home. Fortunately, we had installed security cameras throughout the house 2 years earlier, after a break-in in our neighborhood. The cameras backed up footage to the cloud, and I still had access to the account. I spent hours scrolling through weeks of footage, looking for evidence of Marcus and Bella's inappropriate behavior. What I found was worse than I had imagined. There were countless recordings of them in compromising positions when they thought I wasn't watching. I found footage of them kissing passionately in our kitchen while I was at work. I found videos of them engaging in intimate touching during their supposed workout sessions. I found recordings of Bella sitting on Marcus's lap on our couch while they watched TV, with his hands roaming places that were definitely not appropriate for siblings. Most damning of all, I found a recording from 3 days before Bella moved in, showing Marcus in our garage, rearranging furniture and exercise equipment while talking to someone on the phone. The audio was clear enough that I could hear his side of the conversation. "No, baby, it's going to be perfect," he was saying. "Sarah has no idea. She actually thinks this fitness thing is her idea. We'll have so much more time together, and she'll never suspect anything because she trusts both of us completely." He had been planning the entire deception weeks in advance. I compiled the most damning footage into a single video file and saved it to multiple locations. Then I called a divorce attorney. Jennifer Martinez was a family law specialist who came highly recommended by several people in my professional network. When I explained the situation and showed her the evidence, she was both impressed by my documentation and horrified by Marcus's behavior. "Sarah, what your husband has done is not just adultery," she explained. "He's committed financial abuse by emptying your joint accounts. He's engaged in manipulation and emotional abuse. And depending on how the relationship with his sister started, there could be issues of familial coercion involved." She advised me to immediately open my own bank account, change my direct deposit, and start documenting everything Marcus did or said. She also recommended that I file for a restraining order if Marcus became threatening or volatile. In Arizona, adultery isn't grounds for divorce because we're a no-fault state, she explained, but the financial theft and emotional abuse will definitely impact property division and possibly alimony calculations. Meanwhile, Marcus was becoming increasingly desperate to contact me. He was calling and texting constantly, leaving voicemails that ranged from angry accusations to tearful apologies, to threats about what he would do if I ruined his life over a misunderstanding. One voicemail in particular chilled me to the bone. "Sarah, if you think you're going to destroy my reputation and my career over some jealous fantasy you've concocted, you're seriously mistaken. I have resources and connections that you don't understand. Don't force me to protect myself and my family." That message made me realize that Marcus was capable of much more than infidelity. He was threatening me. I forwarded the voicemail to my attorney and to the police, filing a formal report about the threats and the financial theft. Detective Rodriguez, who took my statement, was professional and thorough. Mrs. Chen, domestic situations involving financial abuse and threats can escalate quickly. He warned me. I'd recommend staying with family or friends until this situation stabilizes. As if Marcus's behavior wasn't destructive enough, the rumor mill was working overtime. Because Bella had posted her version of events on social media, and because Marcus had started telling people that I was having a mental breakdown, some of our mutual friends were choosing sides based on incomplete information. My friend Jessica, whom I'd known since college, called me one evening sounding confused and concerned. "Sarah, Marcus called David and told him that you've been acting erratic lately and that you're making up stories about him and Bella because you're jealous of their close relationship," she said. "He's saying that you need professional help and that he's been trying to get you to see a therapist." This was a calculated move by Marcus. By framing my discovery of his affair as a mental health crisis, he was discrediting anything I might say about his behavior, while simultaneously positioning himself as the concerned, patient husband dealing with an unstable wife. "Jessica," I said calmly, "Marcus is lying, and I can prove it." I sent her some of the security camera footage. Her response was immediate. "Oh my God, Sarah, I am so sorry. How can I help?" The divorce process was incredibly complicated by the fact that Bella was pregnant with Marcus's child. In Arizona, if a woman is pregnant during divorce proceedings, the court can delay finalizing the divorce until after the child is born to address custody and child support issues. This meant that Marcus could potentially drag out the divorce for months, continuing to harass me and waste our marital assets while claiming he needed to prepare for his child. My attorney filed for temporary orders to prevent Marcus from disposing of any more marital property and to establish temporary spousal support. She also filed for a restraining order based on his threatening voicemail messages and his history of financial abuse. Marcus hired Thomas Brennan, one of the most aggressive divorce attorneys in Phoenix. Brennan was known for using scorched earth tactics to destroy opposing parties, often by attacking their character and mental health. True to form, Marcus and his attorney filed a counter-petition claiming that I was mentally unstable, financially irresponsible, and had been emotionally abusive toward Marcus throughout our marriage. They alleged that I had created a hostile home environment that had driven Marcus to seek comfort with his sister. Even more outrageously, they claimed that I had seduced and manipulated Bella into moving in with us because I was obsessed with her and jealous of Marcus's relationship with his family. It was a complete inversion of reality, designed to make me look like the predator and Marcus and Bella look like victims. The hearing for temporary orders was scheduled for 6 weeks after I filed. During that time, Marcus ramped up his campaign to destroy my reputation and isolate me from mutual friends. He started showing up at places where he knew I'd be: my favorite coffee shop, my gym, the grocery store where I always shopped. He would try to approach me to have conversations about our marriage, always in public places where I would look unreasonable if I ignored him or walked away. "Sarah, please just talk to me," he pleaded outside my office building one evening. "We can work through this. Bella made a mistake, but that doesn't mean we have to destroy our entire marriage." Note how even in his apology, he was framing Bella as the one who made a mistake, not acknowledging his own role in seducing his younger sister and manipulating both of us. I started varying my routes to work, shopping at different stores, and avoiding places where Marcus might find me. I felt like I was in hiding in my own city. Meanwhile, Bella was maintaining her social media campaign, posting regular updates about her pregnancy and her difficult situation. She posted photos of her growing belly with captions like, "Despite the drama and negativity from people who should be supporting our family, this little one continues to grow strong. Love always wins." The implication was clear. I was the source of drama and negativity who was refusing to support their family during Bella's pregnancy. Elena, Marcus's mother, called me 3 weeks after I'd filed for divorce. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Sarah, honey," she said, and I could hear that she'd been crying. "I don't understand what's happening with our family. Marcus says you're going through something difficult and Bella is pregnant and scared, and everyone is so angry with each other." It was clear that Marcus and Bella hadn't told Elena the truth about their relationship. They were letting her believe that Bella's pregnancy was from some other relationship and that my divorce filing was unrelated. Elena, I said gently, has Marcus told you who the father of Bella's baby is? There was a long silence. Bella says she doesn't want to talk about it, and Marcus says it's not important right now because the father isn't going to be involved. Elena didn't know. Marcus was letting his mother believe that Bella had been abandoned by some unknown boyfriend, and that I was divorcing Marcus for unrelated reasons. I realized that I was faced with an impossible choice: tell Elena the truth and destroy her relationship with both of her children, or let her continue believing their lies. Elena, I think you need to ask Marcus and Bella some direct questions about the timing of Bella's pregnancy and why I'm divorcing Marcus, I said finally. Sarah, what are you trying to tell me? I'm telling you to ask them directly who the father of Bella's baby is and whether that has anything to do with my marriage ending. I hung up the phone, feeling terrible but knowing that Elena deserved to know the truth about what was happening in her family. The temporary orders hearing was a disaster for Marcus and his attorney. Judge Patricia Wong was clearly disgusted by the evidence we presented, particularly the security camera footage and the voicemail threats. Mr. Chen, Judge Wong said sternly, the court finds your financial behavior and threatening communications completely unacceptable. You will immediately cease all contact with your wife except through attorneys, and you will return half of the withdrawn funds to the joint account within 48 hours. She granted me temporary exclusive use of our house, temporary spousal support, and a restraining order that required Marcus to stay at least 100 yards away from me at all times. Marcus's face was red with fury as we left the courthouse. I could hear him arguing with his attorney in the parking lot. This is ridiculous, Tom. She's making me look like some kind of criminal when all I did was fall in love. Even in his anger, Marcus was framing his affair with his pregnant sister as a romantic love story, rather than acknowledging the manipulation and betrayal involved. My victory in court seemed to energize my opposition. Within days of the hearing, I started noticing cars parked outside my house at odd hours. When I investigated, I discovered that Marcus had hired a private investigator to monitor my activities. The investigator was looking for evidence that I was having an affair, using drugs, engaging in erratic behavior, or doing anything else that could be used against me in the divorce proceedings. I called my attorney immediately. Sarah, this is actually common in high-conflict divorces, Jennifer explained. Marcus is hoping to find something he can use to challenge the temporary orders or to discredit your testimony. Just live your life normally and don't do anything that could be taken out of context. Living normally was easier said than done when I knew someone was watching and documenting my every move. Around the same time, I started getting friend requests on social media from accounts I didn't recognize. When I looked closer, they were clearly fake profiles created to monitor my online activity. Marcus was trying to gather ammunition against me from every possible angle. But I also started getting support from unexpected places. My colleague Stephen, who worked in the accounting department, approached me privately one day. Sarah, I don't know if I should be telling you this, he said quietly, but Marcus came by my office last week asking questions about your work performance and whether you've been acting differently lately. It turned out that Marcus had been contacting my professional colleagues, trying to find evidence that I was having workplace problems or mental health issues that would support his claims about my instability. Stephen, what did you tell him? I asked. I told him that your work has been excellent and that he should probably focus on fixing his own problems instead of trying to create problems for you. I was grateful to have allies, even if they were people I hadn't expected to support me. My friend Rachel, whom I'd met through a book club, became one of my strongest advocates during this period. She'd witnessed some of Marcus's controlling behavior during group gatherings, and she wasn't surprised when I told her about the affair and financial abuse. Honestly, Sarah, I always thought there was something off about Marcus, she confided. He was too charming, too perfect in public, and the way he would subtly put you down or dismiss your opinions during conversations always bothered me. Rachel started documenting instances where she'd witnessed Marcus's manipulative behavior, creating a timeline that my attorney could use to establish a pattern of emotional abuse. Meanwhile, Bella's pregnancy was progressing, and she was becoming more brazen about the situation. She posted ultrasound photos on social media with captions like, "Can't wait to meet my little miracle baby, already so loved by Daddy and me." The use of "daddy" in her posts was particularly disturbing, given that the father of her child was her brother. But because she'd never publicly identified Marcus as the father, most people reading her posts probably assumed she was referring to a boyfriend or partner. 3 months into the divorce process, Elena finally learned the truth. She called me on a Saturday morning, sobbing hysterically. "Sarah, I confronted Marcus and Bella last night," she said through her tears. "When I asked them directly who the father of the baby was, Bella broke down and told me everything." Elena had discovered that her son had been having an affair with her daughter, that they'd both lied to her for months, and that I'd been telling the truth about why the marriage had ended. "How could they do this to our family?" she cried. "How could Marcus take advantage of Bella like this? She's just a baby herself." Even in her devastation, Elena was recognizing that Marcus, as the older and more powerful person in the relationship, bore more responsibility for what had happened. "Elena, I'm so sorry you had to find out this way," I said. "I wanted to tell you earlier, but I thought it should come from them." "Sarah, I owe you a huge apology," she said. "I've been so confused about why you were divorcing Marcus when he seemed so devoted to you. Now I understand that everything he told me was a lie." Elena's support meant more to me than I could express. Having Marcus's own mother acknowledge that he had manipulated and betrayed everyone gave me validation that I wasn't crazy or vindictive. Elena's discovery of the truth created a massive rift in their family. Robert, Marcus's father, was so disgusted by his son's behavior that he threw Marcus out of their house and told him never to come back. "What you've done is not just adultery," Robert reportedly told Marcus. "It's a violation of everything our family stands for. You manipulated your sister, you destroyed your marriage, and you've brought shame on all of us." Bella, meanwhile, was struggling with the reality that her relationship with Marcus wasn't the romantic love story he'd convinced her it was. With Elena's support, Bella started seeing a therapist who specialized in manipulation and abuse within families. It was during these therapy sessions that Bella began to understand how Marcus had groomed her over many years, gradually breaking down appropriate boundaries and convincing her that their relationship was special and secretive rather than wrong and harmful. Elena shared some of what Bella had revealed in therapy, and it painted an even more disturbing picture of Marcus's behavior. According to Bella, Marcus had been making inappropriate comments about her appearance since she was a teenager. He would tell her she was developing into a beautiful woman and that she was too good for the boys her own age. He would buy her expensive gifts and take her on solo outings that felt like dates. When Bella started college, Marcus increased his attention, calling her regularly, visiting her campus, and gradually introducing physical affection that went beyond normal sibling interaction. "He convinced me that what we had was special," Bella told Elena. "He said that most people wouldn't understand our connection, but that it was deeper and more meaningful than regular relationships because we already loved each other as family." This revelation helped me understand that Marcus hadn't just decided to have an affair with his sister on a whim. He had been systematically grooming Bella for years, preparing her to become his victim when the opportunity arose. With this new information, my attorney was able to argue that Marcus's behavior constituted not just adultery, but systematic manipulation and abuse of a family member who had been groomed from a young age. The dynamics of the divorce case shifted significantly once Elena and Robert became my allies instead of Marcus's defenders. They provided testimony about Marcus's history of manipulative behavior and confirmed that they'd witnessed concerning interactions between Marcus and Bella over the years. Robert even admitted that he'd had suspicions about Marcus's intentions toward Bella, but had dismissed them because he Couldn't believe a son would do something like that. Des neidiger haar eyes. Meanwhile, Marcus was spiraling. Without his family's support and facing the possibility of losing everything in the divorce, he began making increasingly desperate attempts to regain control of the situation. He violated the restraining order multiple times, showing up at my workplace and my parents' house, trying to convince me to drop the divorce proceedings. During one incident, he cornered me in the parking lot of my gym and became physically aggressive when I tried to walk away from him. "Sarah, you're destroying my entire life over one mistake," he said, grabbing my arm to prevent me from leaving. "I lost my job because word got around about the divorce. I can't see my family because they believe your lies about me. You've turned everyone against me." I managed to break free and get to my car, but not before recording part of his rant on my phone. The fact that he was blaming me for the consequences of his own actions, and that he was willing to physically restrain me to force a conversation, showed how dangerous he was becoming. Each violation of the restraining order resulted in Marcus spending a night or two in jail, which only made him angrier and more unpredictable. Bella, meanwhile, was dealing with her own consequences. Once the truth about her pregnancy became known in their social circles, she faced social ostracism from people who were disgusted by the situation. She lost her job at the fitness center when other employees became uncomfortable working with her. She was asked to leave the church she'd been attending. Former friends stopped speaking to her. Elena told me that Bella was struggling with severe depression and anxiety, complicated by her pregnancy hormones and the realization that she'd been manipulated by someone she trusted. "She keeps asking me how she could have been so stupid," Elena said. "I keep telling her that she wasn't stupid. She was a victim, but she feels so much shame about the whole situation." I felt sympathy for Bella, despite everything that had happened. She was young, she'd been groomed by someone in a position of power over her, and now she was facing consequences for decisions that weren't entirely her own. At the same time, I had to protect myself from being drawn back into their drama. Elena would sometimes call me, asking if I would consider talking to Bella or providing some kind of support during her pregnancy. "Elena, I understand that Bella is struggling," I would say, "but I can't be the person who helps her through this. Too much has happened and I need to focus on my own healing." During the darkest period of the divorce proceedings, I found support from someone I'd never expected to become close to. Michelle Torres, a woman I'd met through a support group for people dealing with family betrayal and manipulation. Michelle was a 29-year-old social worker who had survived an abusive marriage and understood the psychological tactics that manipulative people use to control their victims. She was smart, empathetic, and had a no-nonsense approach to dealing with people who tried to exploit others. "And Sarah," she said after I'd shared my story with the support group, "what your husband did to you and his sister is textbook predatory behavior. The grooming, the gaslighting, the financial abuse, these are all standard tactics that abusers use." Michelle helped me understand that Marcus's behavior wasn't just about sex or romance. It was about power and control. By seducing his sister and carrying on an affair in my own home, he was demonstrating that he could manipulate anyone and get away with anything. Abusers often target family members because those relationships come with built-in trust and access, Michelle explained. Bella trusted Marcus because he was her big brother. You trusted him because he was your husband. He exploited both relationships for his own gratification. Through the support group and my growing friendship with Michelle, I started to understand that I wasn't just dealing with infidelity. I was recovering from psychological abuse. This realization was both devastating and liberating. Devastating because it meant that my entire marriage had been based on manipulation rather than love. Liberating because it meant that the problems in my relationship weren't my fault. Michelle also helped me prepare for the psychological warfare that Marcus would continue to wage throughout the divorce process. He's going to keep trying to make you feel crazy, guilty, and responsible for his actions, she warned. Every conversation, every text message, every court filing will be designed to make you question your own perception of reality. Armed with this knowledge, I was better equipped to handle Marcus's ongoing manipulation attempts. When he sent me tearful text messages about how much he missed me and how sorry he was for letting things go too far with Bella, I recognized them as manipulation rather than genuine remorse. When he tried to blame his affair on our marriage problems, which he'd invented after the fact, I understood that he was trying to make me take responsibility for his choices. When his attorney tried to portray me as vindictive and money-hungry in court filings, I realized they were trying to distract from Marcus's actual behavior by attacking my character. The support group also connected me with resources I hadn't known about. I learned that Arizona had specific laws about financial abuse in divorce cases, and that Marcus's theft of our joint savings could result in him being required to pay penalties beyond just returning the money. I discovered that there were victims' advocacy services that could help me navigate the legal system and protect myself from further retaliation. Most importantly, I learned that what had happened to me was not unique. Thousands of women every year discover that their husbands are not who they pretended to be, and many of those women successfully rebuild their lives after escaping manipulative relationships. During this period, Michelle and I grew closer as friends. She was going through her own challenging divorce from an emotionally abusive ex-husband, and we found that supporting each other through the legal and emotional challenges made both of us stronger. Michelle was also the first person who helped me recognize that my sexuality might not be as simple as I'd always assumed. "Sarah," she said one evening when we were having dinner together, "have you ever considered that maybe your attraction to Marcus was based more on the security and stability he represented rather than on him as a person?" It was a question I'd never asked myself, but it opened up a conversation about whether I'd been living according to expectations rather than according to my own authentic desires. "I mean, when you think about the future," Michelle continued, "what kind of relationship do you actually want? Not what you think you're supposed to want, but what would actually make you happy?" I realized that I'd never really considered that question. I'd gotten married because it was what successful women in their 20s were supposed to do. I'd wanted children because that was the next logical step. I'd built my life according to a script that I'd never questioned. "I don't know," I admitted. "For the last 6 months, I've been so focused on surviving the divorce and protecting myself from Marcus that I haven't thought about what I actually want my life to look like afterward." "Well," Michelle said with a smile, "maybe that's something worth exploring once this legal nightmare is over." The divorce was finalized 8 months after I filed, just 2 weeks after Bella gave birth to a daughter named Sophie. The timing was not coincidental. Marcus had been dragging out the proceedings, hoping that the birth of his child would somehow give him leverage in the settlement negotiations. Judge Wong was not sympathetic to Marcus's attempts to use his daughter as a bargaining chip. "Mr. Chen," she said during the final hearing, "the court notes that you have consistently attempted to manipulate these proceedings through threats, violations of court orders, and attempts to use your child's welfare as justification for your behavior. This pattern of manipulation will not be rewarded." The final settlement was more favorable to me than I had expected. I received 70% of our marital assets, including the house, most of our investments, and Marcus's retirement accounts. Marcus was required to pay alimony for 3 years and was also required to pay a financial penalty for his theft of our joint savings. Most importantly, the court issued a permanent restraining order that prohibited Marcus from contacting me directly for any reason. "If Mr. Chen wishes to communicate with Ms. Johnson about any matter related to your former marriage, he must do so through his attorney," Judge Wong ordered. "Any direct contact will result in immediate arrest." Marcus's face was stone cold as the judge read the final orders. His attorney had warned him that the outcome was likely to be unfavorable, given the evidence of financial abuse and his repeated violations of the temporary restraining order. As I walked out of the courthouse, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that the legal battle was over and that I was finally free from Marcus's manipulation. Sadness that 8 years of my life had been built on lies and that it had taken such a devastating experience to teach me who I really was. Michelle was waiting for me outside the courthouse with a bottle of champagne and a bouquet of flowers. "How does it feel to be officially divorced?" she asked. "Like I can finally start breathing again," I said. We went to dinner that night to celebrate, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. Not just relieved or grateful, but actually excited about what my future might hold. Over dinner, Michelle and I talked about our plans for the coming year. She was starting a new job at a nonprofit organization that provided services to domestic violence survivors. I was considering leaving my corporate job to start my own consulting business. You know, Michelle said, I've been thinking about what you said a few months ago about not knowing what kind of relationship you actually want. Yeah, I remember that conversation. Have you given it any more thought? I looked at Michelle, this smart, compassionate, beautiful woman who had become my closest friend and strongest supporter over the past year, and realized that I had given it thought, even if I hadn't been ready to acknowledge my conclusions. Actually, I have, I said, and I think the answer might be sitting right across from me. Michelle smiled. I was hoping you might say that. That night, for the first time since discovering Marcus's affair, I felt genuinely excited about the possibility of love and partnership. Not the performative love that I'd had with Marcus, based on meeting social expectations and playing assigned roles, but real love based on mutual respect, shared values, and authentic attraction. Michelle and I spent the next several months taking things slowly, building a relationship based on honesty and communication rather than assumptions and expectations. 6 months after my divorce was finalized, I sold the house in Phoenix and Michelle and I moved to Portland together. We wanted a fresh start in a place where we wouldn't constantly be reminded of my past life with Marcus. Portland turned out to be perfect for both of us. Michelle found a job with a women's rights organization, and I successfully launched my consulting business, specializing in helping small businesses improve their project management systems. We bought a small house in the Hawthorne neighborhood, adopted a rescued pit bull named Ranger, and started building the kind of life that felt authentic to who we really were. 2 years after moving to Portland, Michelle and I got married in a small ceremony in our backyard. It was everything my first wedding hadn't been: intimate, genuine, and focused on our commitment to each other rather than on appearances or expectations. My parents, who had initially been confused about my relationship with Michelle, came to understand that this was the first time they'd seen me truly happy in a romantic relationship. Sarah, my mother said during our wedding reception, I can see how much joy Michelle brings to your life. That's all your father and I have ever wanted for you. Elena, Marcus's mother, sent a beautiful letter congratulating us on our marriage and thanking me for helping her understand what had really happened in her family. Sarah, she wrote, I know that what my son did to you and to Bella was unforgivable, but I also want you to know that watching you rebuild your life with such grace and strength has inspired me to be braver in my own life. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Elena had divorced Robert and was living independently for the first time in her adult life. She'd started seeing a therapist to help her understand how she'd missed the signs of Marcus's manipulative behavior toward Bella. Bella, meanwhile, was struggling as a single mother. Marcus had shown no interest in being a father to Sophie once he realized that having a child with his sister wasn't going to give him the leverage he'd hoped for in our divorce. He'd moved to Las Vegas and was working in construction, sending minimal child support and seeing Sophie only occasionally. Bella was living with Elena and trying to finish an online degree program while caring for her daughter. I felt sympathy for both Elena and Bella, but I maintained my boundaries about not being drawn back into their lives. The trauma they'd experienced was real, but it wasn't my responsibility to help them heal from it. Michelle and I talked about having children, and we decided to explore fostering older children who needed temporary homes while their families worked through crises. I think both of us understand what it's like to have your family situation turned upside down, Michelle said. Maybe we can provide some stability for kids who are going through similar experiences. Our first foster placement was a 14-year-old boy named Tyler, whose mother was in rehab and whose father was incarcerated. Tyler was angry, defensive, and convinced that every adult in his life would eventually abandon him. It took months of consistent support and patience before Tyler started to trust us. When he finally did, he became the son that Michelle and I had never known we wanted. You guys are the first adults who have ever done what you said you were going to do, he told us one evening when we were helping him with his homework. Tyler lived with us for 2 years before his mother completed her treatment program and was able to provide a stable wonderful home for him. When he moved back with her, all three of us cried, but we were proud that we'd been able to help him through a difficult time in his life. We stayed in touch with Tyler and his mother, and we continued fostering other children who needed temporary homes. Over the next 5 years, we provided care for 8 different kids, ranging in age from 10 to 17. Each placement taught us more about resilience, patience, and the importance of creating safe spaces for people who had been hurt by the adults they should have been able to trust. My business continued to grow, and eventually I was able to hire 2 employees and focus on the strategic aspects of consulting rather than the day-to-day project management. Michelle advanced in her career as well, eventually becoming the director of programs at the women's rights organization where she worked. We bought a bigger house with enough space for foster children and for Michelle's elderly mother, who moved in with us after being diagnosed with early-stage dementia. Life wasn't always easy, but it was real in a way that my life with Marcus had never been. Michelle and I disagreed sometimes, faced financial pressures, dealt with family illnesses, and navigated the challenges of foster care and elder care. But we handled these challenges together as partners who respected each other and communicated honestly about our needs and concerns. Looking back on my experience with Marcus and Bella, I've learned several important lessons that I hope might help other women who are facing similar situations. First, trust your instincts. I spent months dismissing my gut feelings about Marcus and Bella's behavior because I wanted to believe that my suspicions were unfounded. In hindsight, my instincts were correct from the very beginning. When something feels wrong in your relationship, don't let anyone, including your partner, convince you that you're being paranoid or jealous. Second, financial abuse is real abuse. Marcus's theft of our joint savings was not a financial disagreement or a miscommunication. It was a deliberate attempt to control me and limit my options. If your partner is hiding money, preventing you from accessing accounts, or using financial resources as a way to threaten or control you, that is abuse, and you deserve support in addressing it. Third, manipulation often looks like love. Marcus convinced Bella that his inappropriate attention was evidence of how much he cared about her. He convinced me that his jealousy and controlling behavior was evidence of how much he loved me. Real love is based on respect, honesty, and support for your autonomy and growth. If someone claims to love you while trying to control, isolate, or manipulate you, that's not love. Fourth, healing takes time, and it's not linear. I spent 2 years in therapy working through the trauma of discovering that my marriage had been built on lies and manipulation. Even now, 5 years later, I sometimes have moments where I question my own perceptions or worry that I'm being too trusting or too suspicious in my relationship with Michelle. Recovery from psychological abuse is an ongoing process, not a destination you reach and then you're done. Finally, it's possible to build something beautiful from the ruins of something destructive. My divorce from Marcus was one of the most painful experiences of my life, but it also led me to discover who I really was and what I actually wanted. If I had stayed married to Marcus, I would never have had the courage to explore my sexuality, to start my own business, to become a foster parent, or to build a relationship based on genuine compatibility rather than social expectations. The life I'm living now is so much more authentic and fulfilling than the life I was living before, even though that life looked perfect from the outside. To anyone who is currently dealing with betrayal, manipulation, or abuse in their relationship, you are stronger than you realize, you deserve better than you're getting, and it is possible to rebuild your life in a way that serves your authentic self rather than other people's expectations. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but you can create a future that is so much better than the present you're trying to escape. Thank you for listening to my story. If you found it helpful, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you've faced similar challenges in your own life. Remember, you are worthy of love, respect, and happiness, and no one has the right to manipulate or control you, no matter what they claim their motivations are. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.